Well, good morning. We are very happy to have you with us on a Monday morning. I'm Savannah Sellers. Joe is off today. We're going to begin this morning with breaking news on Trump's trade war with China. Now, the U.S. and China have agreed to suspend most tariffs on each other's goods for 90 days. Under the agreement, reciprocal tariffs between both countries will be cut. U.S. tariffs on Chinese imports will be cut to 30% from 145%. While China's levies on U.S. goods will be cut to 10%. That's down from 125%. Well, this easing of trade tensions between the world's two largest economies comes after representatives from both nations held high-stakes talks in Switzerland over the weekend. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the talks in Lake Geneva were, quote, very productive. NBC News White House correspondent Vaughn Hilliard joins us from Washington with the very latest. Vaughn, good morning. It's a busy one, a lot to get to with you. So obviously those talks were productive. Look where we are this morning. Walk us through the details of this 90-day pause, how both sides came to this breakthrough.
Right. Very productive in terms of de-escalating what was an astounding trade war between these two trading partners. Let's be very clear. There was effective embargo between the two countries because of that 145% and 125% tariff between the two countries. We had seen ports, ships entering U.S. ports out on the West Coast with just about a third of their typical supply coming in, causing great consternation about what the supply chain here in the United States would look like in these months ahead. And that is where, over the weekend in Switzerland, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, and Jamieson Greer, the U.S. Trade Representative, met with Chinese officials and agreed to lower the tariffs. Now, let's be clear, 30% and 10%, those are still high. If you go back to the first trade war during the Trump administration, right, you were looking at 20% tariffs on Chinese goods, and that was a lot. So the stakes are still high, but far from an effective embargo. At the same time, this is far from a trade deal. There are no specifics about any actual negotiations between concessions or agreements between what products can come and go more effectively between the two trading partners. So there's still a long way to go. But at least for now, despite President Trump for the last 2 months saying he would not draw back these tariffs, that's exactly what this Trump administration agreed to do here over the weekend. Which will, of course, have great impact here in the hours ahead when it comes to companies here in the way that they view their business here going forward the rest of this year.
Vaughn, also this news comes as President Trump is set to depart, as we mentioned, for this first major trip of his second term later this morning. Why has Trump chosen Arab states in the Middle East for this trip? What will be the focus of this visit?
Right. Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia. Those are the three countries that he is going to visit here to start off this trip. To note, Israel is not among those. He did visit Saudi Arabia back in 2017. In his first administration was his first foreign trip. And in many ways, he has touted the investments of these competing countries that have announced hundreds of billions of dollars of investments into the United States. He sees these places as strong business partners going into the future. His son, Eric Trump, was out promoting crypto in the region just 1 week ago, a business venture specifically for the Trumps. And so in many ways, you see the Trump administration turning towards these countries as not only business partners, but also he had sought at the end of his administration, he had hoped that Saudi would normalize relations with Israel. The war in Gaza has really gotten in the way of much of those efforts. But Qatar has been a particular mediator in a lot of instances, an ally to this White House here. And so he sees in the region there, each of these countries as being good partners for broader relations in the greater region, including in Israel.
Vaughn, also, we do have other breaking news from the Middle East region this morning. Hamas said that Idan Alexander is an Israeli-American hostage who's actually believed to be the last living U.S. citizen held in Gaza, will be released today. How did this happen? What more do we know at this time? And have we heard anything from the White House on this?
Right. Idan Alexander is an Israeli-U.S. dual citizen, and he was the last, we believe, to be American citizen held by Hamas. There are still more than 20 hostages believed to be alive that Hamas has yet to turn over to Israel here. But Steve Witkoff, who was a special envoy for President Trump, worked with Hamas, the White House says directly, but also the president noting in a social media post that Qatar and Egypt helped as mediators in these negotiations. And the president said that this was done in good faith by Hamas. This was not an exchange, but this was simply a providing Eden Alexander here. We anticipate being returned to the United States in the hours ahead here. This is notable, again, when we are discussing the Middle East part of this trip here. The president has grown frustrated with Bibi Netanyahu's continued war in Gaza. Of course, the idea, Steve Witkoff, was trying to negotiate an end to this war. We appear to be still far from that, as Israel has said that they intend to wholly clear out Hamas. There has been those more than 20 hostages that have yet to be turned over. And so in the Middle East there, you have some of these countries that are concerned about what is taking place in Gaza and the thousands of individuals who have been killed during this war. And that has really slowed the progress, peace progress, greater peace progress in the region. And so this Hamas deal of turning over Eden Alexander is seen as the president said, a good faith effort there to extend a hand to this White House about continued negotiations toward a possible conclusion of the Israel-Hamas war.
Big news. We will certainly be keeping our eyes on it and bringing that to you as it happens today. Vaughn, we also mentioned this a moment ago, learning that the Trump administration is preparing to accept this luxury jet from Qatar to use as Air Force One. This is four sources familiar with the planning telling NBC News. Why is this happening? Why is this gift being given? And also, is it legal for the president to accept it?
The legal part of this is a big outstanding question. Democrats here over the last 24 hours calling this corrupt and unconstitutional, saying this amounts to taking a foreign bribe, that the Constitution lays out that the president, when it comes to foreign emoluments and the providing of gifts, must be authorized by Congress. But there's some pushback is there has to be the intent of bribery involved in such a gift as this. We're looking at a price tag of this Boeing that's being $300 to $400 million. And overnight, I'll just read directly from the president. He says, so the fact that the Defense Department is getting a gift free of charge of a 747 aircraft to replace the 40-year-old Air Force One temporarily in a very public and transparent transaction so bothers the crooked Democrats that they insist we pay top dollar for the plane. Of course, there's a lot of questions about this aircraft. Again, we're hitting at Qatar here. This is one of those three countries that the president is going to be visiting this next week. And you're talking about Air Force One that is getting up there in age. And there's been much discussion about a future new Air Force One here. But the president of the United States indicating that he will accept this gift from Qatar of this major luxury aircraft. In the meanwhile, of course, there's a lot of national security questions, as well as to potentially any wiretapping or any attempts to use this as surveillance. To what extent is this outfitted with the necessary defense capabilities through the Department of Defense? There's a lot of questions here, but I'm told by one of those sources that tells NBC News that this is a transaction that is expected to proceed here in the weeks ahead, and that after the conclusion of Trump's administration, the expectation would be that that plane would be turned over to the Trump Library Foundation. Savannah. All
right, Vaughn Hilliard covering quite a bit for us this morning. Thank you very much, Vaughn. See you soon.
Thanks, friend.
Well, Pope Leo XIV spent the first Sunday of his papacy giving his first Sunday blessing and addressing the crowd in St. Peter's Square. The new pope delivered a message of peace, calling for ceasefires in Gaza and Ukraine. The Pope quoted his predecessor, Pope Francis, by saying the conflicts were a third world war in pieces. On Sunday, the Pope also celebrated a private mass near the tomb of St. Peter. And this morning, he held an audience with the media. NBC's Ann Thompson has the latest.
This morning, Pope Leo met the journalists who covered his election. Thousands of us crammed into the Paul VI auditorium to hear an impassioned defense of journalism. The Pope said the church stands in solidarity with reporters who are imprisoned around the world for telling the truth. And he urged everyone to safeguard what he called the precious gift of free speech. He met with some journalists individually, including NBC's Lester Holt. Now, at his first Sunday blessing, Leo called for an end to war, urging a ceasefire in Gaza and a lasting peace in Ukraine. This weekend, as his vision of the papacy took place, we could see Leo embrace France's legacy of caring for the poor and rejected and increasing dialogue with the modern world. And Leo puts special emphasis on the dangers posed by artificial intelligence, particularly to the dignity of work and justice. Now, this is going to be a very busy week for the new pope. Along with meeting the media, he will also meet with Vatican diplomats this week and then prepare for his inaugural mass on Sunday. All the while, the world is watching.
All right, Anne, thank you so much. Well, here's someone who knows the new pope better than most. It's his older brother, Luis Prevost. He joins us live. Luis, thank you very much for being with us. Good morning. I'm excited to talk to you. And of course, I want to start with the moment that your brother was announced as the new pope. Just tell us your reaction. The moment he walked out onto that famous balcony, or even just before when it was announced that it was him, what was your reaction? Were you anticipating that it could be him?
Good morning. Yeah, in the back of my mind, there was this chance that, yes, he could actually end up being the Pope, which, of course, raised the excitement level all over the place here at our house here in Florida and at my brother's house. But so I didn't expect it to come that fast. So Thursday when it was announced, my wife called and said, because I wasn't paying attention, said, white smoke, and then it piqued my interest, turned the TV on, watched the chimney on every channel, just the chimney with the white smoke. And when they finally came out and we're going to name the name, you know, we have a new pope, and he started to say the name. When he started with the Roberto, and then I'm like, oh my God, that's going to be Rob, my brother. But there's one other cardinal, I think, that had a first name Robert. So let's see what happens just to make sure. But the excitement was already building because I just knew that it was going to be Rob, my brother. And then it's, of course, Roberto Francisco, and then Prevost. And that was it. My mind has been blown. My life has changed currently, instantaneously. It's just words don't describe what happened. It's super happy, of course, overjoyed, glad, happy for him. But on the other hand, that's a big burden. And I'm like, well, maybe that's not so good for him or us, or talking together like we normally do. He's going to have his hands full for a while. And you get the negative side, which thinks maybe I lost a brother, gained a pope, lost a brother, but he'll always be my brother. And I don't think we'll lose him totally, but we just may not get to see him as often as we used to, or talk to him as often as we used to. But It was phenomenal. I'm still, this is what, 3-4 days later, and you go to bed at night thinking you're about to go to sleep, and then it hits you again. My brother's the Pope. And it just goes on. And the reality, every time, you know, when you turn on the news with the new Pope, the media is watching his every step. And so you always, every time his face pops up on the TV, wow.
That's my brother.
Crazy.
Did I read that right when it was announced you did a little dance?
I did, because when the announcement was actually made, I was kind of lying in bed, because I wasn't feeling on top of the world. And when the announcement was made, I was out of bed. I didn't even know I was sick, and just jumping around the room. I was like, thank goodness I was in bed, because I probably would have hurt myself falling over when the announcement actually came across. And when I saw as he proceeded out on the balcony up the little ramp to the edge there, we watched the top of his forehead and said, yep, that's Rob, here he comes. And then when his face hit the screen, I mean, it just blew the mind again. Just every time we see him on the news now, it just brings all that flooding back, and
have you
it's like,
spoken
will there
to
ever
him?
be any rest? I haven't spoken over the phone with him. We've texted messages. It's just hard to get a hold of him. Obviously, he's
Right.
busy.
Absolutely. He's obviously.
But yeah, we've been in communication since then. Yes.
Oh, good. He's obviously just starting out in this role, but as somebody who knows him so well, what type of leader do you think that Catholics should be prepared for?
Well, in this my opinion, I wouldn't look for any radical changes from where the church currently is. I think, again, his background seems real similar to Pope Francis, as his was, coming from South America in the missionaries, more or less. So he's always been amongst the downtrodden, the poor people, and looking out for them. So I think that sense of the matter will continue. He is very down to earth. He's very open-minded. I think some of these topics I've heard discussed that he's addressing now, as what do you call it? Religious as he is, or as priestly, as popey, I don't know. But he has a knowledge and an ability to talk like technical terms in a lot of different subjects, as well as he can talk to people of all levels of society, whether they be the poor downtrodden that don't have radios, TVs, and telephones, or presidents and premiers of countries. He can talk at their level. He's very technical minded again. Computer, he's up to speed. He's probably a more modern pope. He's a little younger than your typical pope. He's also from America, where he's had exposure to high-tech kind of things, and maybe that's what's driving his words on AI going forward. But I think he'll be a conservative on church rules, church doctrine. He's very well studied in church doctrine and canon law. So like I say, I don't think there'll be any radical changes to any rules in the church going forward. He'll be all about trying to grow the church. He's big on peace.
And I know, if I'm correct, tell me that it's something, I think he'd at least wanted to be in a leadership role within the church and maybe dreamed of the Pope one day. But as I understand it, while a lot of people grow up playing all kinds of games, he, even very young, right, was playing priest?
Yep. That was one of his favorite games, and our parents fully supported it. I used to tease him about it. A lot of us did, but he was set in his ways. If he wanted to play priest, Mom would break out the ironing board for him, throw a white sheet over it. I think they spray painted a cup gold to pretend to be a chalice. So yeah, he was definitely called to something special. It was evident throughout his childhood. People would always say, "You're going somewhere in the church," and he wasn't, but 8 or 9 years old. "You're going to be Pope one day."
Wow.
It's just been from when he was, like I say, probably from birth and going forward. And he never vacillated on it. It was always, "I'm going to the priesthood." I don't know that I would say he ever expected or wanted to be elected Pope, but one of our talks, we did talk about it, and he said, "Well, it's not my choice, but if I'm elected, it's God's will. I will, of course, accept the verdict of the cardinals." And he did. So here he is. My little brother is now the Pope. It's crazy.
Oh, Louis, thank you very much for your time this morning. We really appreciate it. It's so neat getting to know more about him. The most famous man in the world right now, probably, from the people who know him best. We appreciate your time.
Yes. Well, thank you. You're welcome.
All right, well, let's come back here to home. Another air traffic control system outage happened on Sunday, causing major delays for flyers at Newark Airport once again. The latest equipment failure prompted a ground stop and caused hundreds of delays. Now officials warn the entire system is under strain. NBC News correspondent Maya Eaglin has the latest.
Hi there. Yes, here at Newark, another chaotic day of travel as hundreds of flights experienced more delays and cancellations here, all due to some technical difficulties. Take a look.
At Newark International, concern and confusion.
I should have just gotten rid of my ticket and picked another airport.
After an equipment outage resulted in a 45-minute ground stop at one of the nation's busiest airports. Issued at 8:15 a.m. local time after a source tells NBC News an audio issue caused a popping sound on a few radio frequencies between pilots and air traffic controllers. The telecommunications issue led the FAA to use their backup system. The impact fell throughout the day, with over 300 flights delayed or canceled. It's the third outage after weeks of travel chaos. Transportation Secretary Duffy on NBC News' Meet the Press.
I'm concerned about the whole airspace, right? The equipment that we use, much of it we can't buy parts for new. We have to go on eBay and buy parts if one part goes down. You're dealing with really old equipment.
Comes after radar screens briefly went black at Newark's TRACON on Friday in Philadelphia. But on top of the technical failures, Newark has been dealing with runway construction and bad weather. United CEO says passengers do not need to be worried.
It absolutely is safe at Newark and in the entire country. And the reason is, when these kind of outages happen, we train for them. We have backup procedures.
At Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, a ground stop also issued after the FAA says there were runway equipment issues. Some senators calling for action.
The FAA must put Newark first and must put everything they've got into fixing Newark ASAP. This situation cannot last.
And we heard from Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy that he plans to meet with several of the airline companies here in order to try and reduce the number of flights that are coming in and out of Newark Airport in hopes of a better experience for travelers. Back to you.
All right, Maya, thank you so much. Also, let's listen to more of that conversation between Meet the Press moderator Kristen Welker and the Transportation Secretary, who just saw featured in Maya's piece there, digging deeper into concerns about the overall safety of air travel.
Bottom line, is it safe to fly in the United States right now?
We are the safest airspace. For sure, and traveling by air is way safer than any other mode of transportation, which is why I take it, my family takes it. But again, that doesn't mean you don't look over the horizon and say, hey, if there is a major outage, could that be a risk to life? Of course it could be, which is why we fix it, which is why, listen, this is what I think is someone should have seen that there were 80 near misses at the DC airspace, right? Someone should have seen it and stopped that cross traffic. I need to look and say, well, what is the other risks that exist in the airspace? And I should see it and I should fix it. And that's what I'm doing here. Before you lose life, I want to fix it so we preserve life and underscore safety.
And our thanks to Kristen for that conversation. Well, let's get you to weather now. It was a picture-perfect weekend here in the Northeast. We're heading into another week of May showers for the Southeast. Michelle Grossman has your forecast today. Hi, Michelle. Good morning.
Hi, Savannah. Great to see you. Yeah, it was picture perfect in the Northeast. And we're going to keep it really nice today. Rain moves in tomorrow. But you're right, the Southeast continues to be very, very wet. We're looking at a southern soaker, an area of low pressure kind of just sitting over that area, bringing that heavy rain. Radar right now showing us the picture of what's happening. We are looking at heavy rain falling. You see all those bright colors, the reds, the oranges, the yellows. That's where we're seeing the heaviest rain falling. So we are concerned about flooding. We're concerned about flash flooding. And this is all going to move up to the north. So the Northeast, you're going to see that rain tomorrow. 16 million people under flood watches. Where you see the green, that is a flood watch. We've had flash flood warnings, too, as well this morning. So we will most likely see those pop in and out. And that means flooding is happening now. It's imminent because we are looking at a lot of rain falling. This is a setup. We have an area of low pressure. It's moving off to the north. So we're seeing heavy downpours from Virginia to Florida. The severe weather risk is low today. It's not zero. We could see some strong storms that will produce some small hail, some damaging winds, certainly some heavy downpours, and also the chance of a couple tornadoes. But the bigger threat is a flash flood threat. And we're going to watch that today, also on Tuesday. Now, as we go throughout Tuesday, notice that area of low pressure moving up to the north. So now it's centered over the Ohio Valley. The flood risk moving to the mid-Atlantic states. And you're looking at those bright colors. That's where we're going to see the anticipation of some really heavy rain. Remember, it was a wet week last week, so the ground is still pretty saturated. It's not going to take much to flood, so that's what we're going to watch as we go throughout the next couple of days. Rainfall forecast locally 5 inches in some spots throughout the mid-Atlantic, into the Northeast, also the Carolinas, but locally up to 8 inches on top of what has already fallen. And that is mainly in portions of southern Florida. So as a result, we do have a flash flood risk. Notice that pink shading, that includes Miami. That is a moderate risk. So that's higher on the scale of flash flooding. And where you see the blue, we could see some flooding from the Carolinas, the mid-Atlantic, all the way down to the southeast. Tomorrow, we'll see that slight risk into parts of the mid-Atlantic. That includes D.C., Norfolk, Roanoke, but it stretches all the way to the Ohio Valley as well. Severe weather threat, again, it's not the highest it's been. It's relatively low today, but still could see some storms reaching severe limits with winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour. Could see some hail, a couple tornadoes are possible as well, and then that rainfall. Otherwise, we're looking at a really dry day throughout central and the central plains, the southern plains, but record heat in the northern plains. We're looking at temperatures near 100 degrees in many spots there. Very, very hot there, and it's going to be windy in the southwest. Savannah, we're going to see some red flag warnings as well, where you see that wind, and also in the northern plains with that heat combined. Back to you.
Oh, still a lot going on across the country. Michelle, thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app, or follow us on social media.